Good evening and welcome to another week of Overtime here on WOTM. I am Gerhard Mathangani, joined this Monday night by our expert researcher and historian, Mark Everett Kelly. Mark, thanks for joining us. How you been?
Pretty good. It's nice to get back to sports this week. I missed not doing two shows last week.
Yeah.
We had that incredible rain that
Right.
day, that one day where like half the state flooded and things had to get pushed back.
Exactly.
But it's always nice to talk sports, man.
No doubt. Thankfully, it all dried up and we're all back to now another week here. And there's not a whole lot as far as games go, but there's a lot of storylines in and around sports. Tim Tebow looking to make a return back to the NFL. DK Metcalf runs the 100-meter dash with world-class athletes. We also have the Auburn Tigers and Alabama Crimson Tide baseball teams positioning themselves maybe for a run in the SEC tournament starting up. But we will start with the Atlanta Braves, who are now 17-17 overall, third in the NL East. Mark, this is a team we've followed all year long, and we got a chance to see them against another division opponent, against the Phillies. They took 2 of 3 from the Phillies. Atlanta's now won 5 of 6 overall. How do you assess this team right now, a team that had high expectations going into the year, but now kind of sitting middle of the pack overall and a 500 record overall in the season?
Well, coming into the week, they had that losing streak against the Blue Jays, getting swept against the Blue Jays. Most fans don't expect them to get swept by the Blue Jays.
Right.
So still, I don't really know where they played those games. I think it was in Buffalo.
Right.
But the Braves were expected to beat those types of teams. So going into this season, the National League East has really struggled so far. And everybody thought it was going to be probably the best division in baseball. I mean, I saw prognostications where you had the Phillies, the Mets, and the Braves winning at least 90 games, and who knew what to expect of the Marlins? No one expected them to make the playoffs last year.
Right.
And they did, even though it was a shortened season. But then, Atlanta's offense has been struggling, and it still really hasn't, exploded. I mean, they didn't really do much offensively this week.
Right.
But they sweep the Nationals in Washington, which is always nice. Even if you don't really have much. There's just something about the Nationals that you don't like when you're playing in the National League East. So for the Braves to get off and do that, get off to a good start, come home to play the Phillies, who are another natural rival. And they've played a couple games this year already. That Sunday night game where, of course, the Braves got kind of, we want to say, a bad call against them that stopped them from winning that game. So they've already tried, a couple of things this year and have gotten on each other's nerves so far. The Phillies beat them 12-2 on Friday night, and then it looks like they're going to beat them on Saturday. And then Big Panda, who I probably the biggest player I've ever seen in a baseball uniform.
No doubt.
This guy looks like they just got him off the subway. I mean, he's got belt hanging on. I mean, does not look like a baseball player. Looks more like a softball player.
Right.
But he hit a bomb off of Neris to tie the game. Thanks to capacity there, life is back in the stadium, and those people were going crazy. And then the Braves rally again in extra innings. Pache scores. Adriana gets on an error. So they come back again to tie the game down 1 run. And then down 3, after that, Jacob Webb made that error on the ground ball back to the mound. They looked so dejected. And then Webb didn't cover home. That allowed McCutcheon to score. And then the next batter gets up. So 3 batters in. They're up 3 runs. I think it's a big double play to kind of end the momentum. And then DD pops out. So now Braves are going down 3 going into the bottom of the 12th. And the Braves don't even make an out. Boom, boom, boom. Swanson, some aggressive base running on the extra base hit by Wilson Contreras. Ties the game. And then you have the walk-off hit by Adriana again, and the Braves win. That was a huge win because if they lose that game, they lose the first 2 games of that series. The Phillies were in first place at the time, and they were like the only team over 500 until the Mets got there too. So you don't want to fall too far behind the Phillies, even though it's still early. But that was a big win because not only did it show that they can rally, but they beat Neris. Then they came back again. They were having trouble winning extra inning games earlier in the year. And they never gave up. And the fans and everybody else, I think emotionally for them, you could see how excited they were after that game. I just think it was a big win emotionally for them, a high point for them that they were really struggling to reach a high point like that this season.
Exactly. And one of the guys that we'll take a look at is Dansby Swanson, and his production is one of the ones that has really popped, especially in that series against the Phillies. And he's a guy that a lot of Braves fans have been really excited about. He had a great summer last year, and it had played very well in spurts. But he had a great series against the Phillies, and you see this every now and again with these major league players. You'll see where you get a good series going, and that can get the confidence rolling in the right direction. And it seemingly with Swanson, hopefully a lot of Braves fans will cross their fingers on that he's now able to find his groove now that he's able to do that. He's always had a great defense, always been a good defensive player, a guy that you can count on. But now at the plate as well, a pretty solid series against the Phillies.
Yeah, I mean, he was a first-round pick, and he was kind of everybody's darling back in 2016 when the Braves were still struggling.
Right.
Then he got off to a really bad 2017 season, struggled through that. Hasn't been as impressive offensively as he was those 20, 30 games of 2016. But he's a big player in their lineup.
Right.
And when he's a great base runner, and you saw how important that was on that extra base at the tie of the game. He's a great fielder, and I think overall he gives the Braves great leadership. So when he's hitting, that's an additional bonus for them. He doesn't have to hit 300. He can hit 260. He'll score 75 runs. He'll drive in 75 runs. That's all he needs to do. This past week, though, he's getting hot, and you can see the results. The Braves 5-1.
Exactly, and like you said, they're 5-1 over the last 6 games, and also, like you said earlier, a great series against the Phillies, and they won in different kind of ways as well. There, Dansby Swanson's playing well, but there are some players that are struggling, and that's what we'll highlight next. Some of the players that we expected to have a great season, and obviously a sample size of a week is not long, but it is kind of indicative when you take a look at the fact that they have been playing so well, and they're doing so in spite some of their top names not playing their best baseball.
Yeah, Pashev's a guy who I thought would be a Rookie of the Year candidate last year, but he didn't really play enough games, and they had some COVID issues. So this year he's really struggled.
Right.
I thought he did well in the postseason, having not played most of the year. Riley had a real solid middle of April. Now he's kind of struggling again, but overall I think Riley, his presence. He got hit by a line drive. I don't know if you saw on Saturday where he just kind of got down. He's a tough kid, and I think that just his toughness alone is good for the Braves to see. Plus, I don't think too many people thought that he was going to be this good of an average hitter, or he makes real solid contact with the ball. He doesn't strike out as much as he did last year, even though he's still high totals. Everybody's striking out high.
Right.
But I like the contact that Riley makes when he puts the ball in play. Acuna has got injured again, but Acuna, he's such a big part of the lineup. Even when he doesn't hit, he'll hit for an average. He'll still drive in runs and score runs. And Ozuna. So these guys are not really still hitting. Braves still went 5-1. Just wait until they start hitting.
Exactly, and some of their top players, once they do start hitting, they'll be obviously a great weapons offensively for this baseball team, just like they were towards the end of last year. One of the guys that you mentioned here on this graphic is a guy we'll talk about next, Ronald Acuna. Now, he's listed as day-to-day with a pinky finger contusion. How important do you think is this moving forward? Because he's a guy that really, with a lot of the Braves players, health is obviously a big thing in baseball, just in general. But he's obviously the kind of the catalyst for this baseball team. How important is it for him to get back quickly and stay healthy just overall throughout the course of the year?
Well, you don't want him to be dealing with lingering injuries all year, because that can really start to develop and then get annoying as the year goes on, to where you're constantly trying to fight through the next injury. It's not anything major, but it's especially with the hand.
Right.
You don't want to have a sore hand up there and then 7-8 games go by and you haven't hit the ball like you normally do. So those are the types of things that I would worry about if I were the Braves. Is if he is kind of hurting for more than a week, you could sit him down now. You don't have to play him right now. He's more important that you have him as the year goes on. Yeah, it'd be nice to see him. He's got 10 homers right now.
Leading the majors.
Yeah, I think he could hit 50, 60, and then be a 50-50 guy, a 60-60 guy even. So it'd be nice to see him be able to chase those things. But it's more important that once the real game time rolls around and we get into summer and the Braves start to make that push for the postseason, that he's healthy and then he can pick up from there. You don't want him always having a bruised hand or a bruised knee, or he hurt his stomach earlier in the year when sliding on Sunday Night Baseball. So you don't want him dealing with those types of things. There should be enough time. Braves have enough talent Adriana has really played well. Some of these replacements who no one expected, these are guys that are in their late 20s that have come over, some from Cuba. Some guys have been career minor leaguers that have done real well. So I think the Braves have enough depth to where they don't need him to play hurt constantly, and they don't want him to play hurt because it's a different player if you have a bruised hand or if you have a bruised hamstring or something like that. He can't be as explosive stealing bases, and he doesn't have the normal pop coming off his bat if he's worrying about bruises on his hands.
Exactly. Last thing we'll talk about with these Braves is something that's off the field. It's about capacity. And the state of Georgia, like Alabama, obviously getting a little bit closer to normal. And what we're seeing now with the Braves is the Braves now the first club in the major leagues to go full 100% seating capacity. Braves doing it for the first time since the 2019 season. 100% seating capacity. We saw that on Friday of 41,000 people in the stands there at Truist Park there in Atlanta. How big is this overall for the Braves? Because, I mean, obviously fans don't score runs and they don't hit and they don't field. However, they do add to the game's ambiance, and I think in a way that you can't really quantify. You take a look at some of these games around Major League Baseball and around basketball. They feel like churches. It's a very, very low energy atmosphere. How important do you think this is for the Braves, a team that has a very, very strong fan base? Now they're coming back to watch this with no restrictions.
Well, I remember when the Braves really didn't have much of a fan base in the 80s. And then you saw how excited they got in the early 90s. I remember Ted Turner and Jane Fonda being at the games and Old Tomahawk Chop and all that. That kind of got people back into it. So there was a very lively crowd down there. And, you know, being from New York, we always thought of Braves fans as kind of not as serious as the New York fans because we are more dedicated. That's not necessarily true. Some of these people are real nut jobs. So I think they love their Braves. You're going to come out, and this was a chance for them to do something they haven't done for God knows how long. Get back to normality. And I think the Braves gave them a lot of reason to be excited, especially on Saturday night. Not much on Friday night. But on Saturday night, that was worth it. Nobody left. Everybody was still there. Because they hadn't been there for so long.
Right. Game day atmosphere will be really interesting over in Atlanta with 100% seating capacity, as we saw over the weekend against the Philadelphia Phillies. We'll talk a little bit more baseball coming up a little bit later in our show, but coming up next here on Overtime, a famous name in the SEC is making a return back to football. It's Tim Tebow. Where he's going and what position he's playing is very, very noteworthy. We'll talk about it next here on our program.